So you might be familiar with the story of the lost city of Atlantis, a fictional island said to have sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. But you might know that we have our own version here in Ireland, although Disney haven't made a film of it yet. Any guesses whereabouts it is? Cavan, of course. Where else? And it just so happens to be only a mile down the road from me, a town called Shercock. Now Shercock is no different than any other small Irish town. There's more pubs than people, or at least they used to be. Few newsagents, few takeaways and an undertaker. Sure, what more could you want? It's your weekend sorted. And just on the edge of Shercock is Lough Sillan, one of Cavan's 365 lakes, one for every day of the year. Now Lough Sillan is known for the fishing, the odd jet ski and having an indeterminable amount of fish in it. A local saying is, how many fish in Lough Sillan? Which is an answer to a question that has no answer. Something like, how many cows would you say they've up in that field? Or how many Cavan people will I have to listen to brag about them winning the All-Ireland 72 years ago? And how many more times will I have my heart broke by Monaghan football? Sure, many fish in Lough Sillan. But the town of Shercock as we know it today isn't actually the original town of Shercock. And you might be wondering, where is the original town of Shercock? It's at the bottom of Lough Sillan. Now people who are familiar with the town might be saying, how could Shercock get any worse? Sure, putting it underwater might be an improvement. So long ago, before records began, or at least before 1985 anyway, the original town of Shercock stood where Lough Sillan is today. I'd say they had the same amount of pubs, but I wouldn't say their chipper was as good. Now, I know that everyone thinks that their local chipper is the chipper. I've tried many people's locals and have been let down every time. Half-frozen chips, fish swimming in grease, and such a small amount of vinegar you'd think they were rationing the stuff. But Shercock's chipper is the chipper. It's top drawer. Like, I know people who come from as far away as Kingscourt just for the chips. I mean, that's at least a 13-minute journey by car, or 14 on a bad day. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the lost town of Shercock. So long ago, before records began, before 1985, the original town of Shercock stood where Lough Sillan is now. And in the middle of the town was a well. No ordinary well, of course. It was a magic well. The well was a wee bit cursed. And on top of the well was a heavy wooden lid, heavier than it needed to be. And on top of the lid was a sign that said, close lid after use. Now both the well and the sign had been there for so long that no one knew why they had to close the lid. They just knew that they had to. So one day a young mother, and you can tell that this is an old story because of course it's the young mother that's at fault. As she did every day, she went to go get a can of water from the well. She put her baby to sleep, and when the baby was asleep, she headed off to the well, which was only a stone's throw from her house. She lifted open the heavy wooden lid and lowered in the can. And as the can filled up with water, she heard a baby crying, a soul-piercing wail and cry. Now the front door of the house was open and there was only an old goat in the yard, and she thought, well, maybe the goat went into the house. So she dropped the can of water and took off back to the house. But in her hurry, what did she forget to do? Close the lid. So she burst into the house and went over to the baby, but he was sound asleep, not a bother on him. So where was the crying coming from? She turned around, and who was standing in the doorway? It looked like the old goat, but it wasn't the goat, wasn't it the puka, notoriously mischievous Irish spirit. And the puka opened his mouth and cried the same cry she'd heard earlier. And just over the puka's shoulder, she saw the well, water gushing out of it. She forgot to close the lid. So she shoved the puka out of the way and sprinted back to the well as the water flowed and flowed out of it. But the puka had had his fun. So he picked up a piece of slate that was lying on the ground and he threw it at her, severing both her legs just below the knee. And as she fell to the ground, so did the flow of water. But it was too late. A large loch had already formed. And she watched as the town and everyone and everything in it disappeared below the water, never to be seen again. Although some people say that if you go out to Lough Sillan on a boat in a clear day and look down into the water, you can still see that lost town of Shercock. Although don't get too close to the water or the puka will drag you down there himself.